First of all, I've always hated being cold. You know, I'm that weird person, I eat raw frozen liver every morning. Like, as soon as you get into that body of water, every cell and every inch of your body wants you to get out and run.
So this year I started the year on my socials, like so many other people, on Instagram, Facebook, seeing all of these videos popping up of the usual journal writing, meditating, exercising. But I feel like this year it was slightly different. I saw a lot of people also doing things like ice plunging. And so I thought this would be a perfect topic to begin the Motivate Me series with on the wellness front, because it seems to be everywhere, whether people are doing it in their back gardens, in their hot tubs, makeshift freezers. And then I just had to reach out to one of my good friends and CEO of Monk, Laura Fullerton. Monk is bringing the ice bath experience into people's homes, allowing people to just elevate their everyday. And I thought there's no better person to quiz on this topic. So welcome, Laura, to Motivate Me. Super exciting following Monk's journey and everything that you're doing. And I just want to help people understand why incorporating this into their wellness routines could potentially be an incredible idea for them this year. So let's start with just demystifying the term cold water therapy, because when I first heard that, even I was a little bit confused. Like, is that different to an ice bath? Is that the ice bath experience? What degrees does it have to be? How long do you have to be submerged for? So if you can just start by explaining the term, that would be great.
Sure. So technically, cold water therapy is any kind of body of cold water that is typically less than 15 degrees. So it doesn't even have to be that cold. Okay. So it kind of encapsulates everything from ice bath, from going in the sea, from even cold showers. That counts as cold water therapy as well.
Great. And how long would you have to be, I guess, in that body of water for it to actually, for you to experience the benefits that cold water therapy brings on?
Not long at all. I mean, typically 2 minutes you'll experience the benefits, but it kind of depends why you're doing it. So if you're doing it for muscle recovery, you typically use it between like 10 to 15 degrees. You might stay in for a lot longer. You might be in there for like 10, 15 minutes. But typically, you know, people, when you get into it, you're doing it for mental health and just to feel that kind of euphoria and to wake yourself up. And typically, 2 minutes is all you need. So, you know, so often you see on Instagram people like hacking into ice and getting in and staying in for ages, and you just don't need to do that.
Well, this is what I saw. I saw literally makeshift freezers, I saw hot tubs, and then I saw what you guys are doing, which is obviously now makes perfect sense why there's this gap. And yeah, it looks pretty extreme, I'm not gonna lie. It takes a lot of effort to install that type of thing. So you can just start by going into rivers or the sea or a shower, because I guess that's what people have access to, right? In London.
Exactly, yeah.
And across the UK.
It's the perfect way to get started, because it's scary, right? The thought of going into freezing cold water is not appealing to anyone.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think we all think of a reward as jumping into a hot shower after a workout, going on holiday to somewhere hot, and then this is obviously the complete opposite of that.
Yeah.
So talk us, like, this is what I'm fascinated by. I've always known you in the wellness world and developing sort of wellness products and sort of being on the cutting edge of that. But talk us through your journey. How did you go from probably exercising and eating well to practicing cold water therapy? How often do you practice it, and what did that journey look like?
Sure. So first of all, I've always hated being cold. So now when I tell people, especially from my childhood, that I'm doing cold water therapy, and it's like it's become my life, the irony is just not lost on me.
Wow.
So as you say, I've always been very much into health, particularly into like the biohacking, health optimization kind of side of things. So, you know, I'm that weird person. I eat raw frozen liver every morning. I do grounding. I do all like the cool.
This doesn't even surprise me though, because I feel like, of course you do that. We're going to get into that as well. But wow. Okay. So you're constantly basically trying to try the new and interesting things that are coming into, I guess, because ice baths are very much coming into the mainstream now.
Yeah, totally. So I'll do all the other things like breath work, and I love the more like holistic side of things. It doesn't have to be like the cutting edge tech, but you know, I'm super open-minded about it. But I had never tried cold water therapy, and then someone invited me to a breath work and ice bath workshop. And I went along thinking, this is going to be horrible. I'm going to hate it. The last thing I want to do is get into a thing of ice, also in front of loads of people, like just did not appeal. But I did it. And afterwards, I just thought, why do I feel so good? And I just had this, you know, everyone describes it as euphoria. You just feel like on top of the world, so sharp, so alert. And I just wanted more of it. But the thing I quickly found is that it was just so inaccessible, which sounds stupid because it's cold water.
Yeah.
But I bought so many bags of ice to chuck into my ice or my bath at home. I've used like horse water troughs. Oh, I also learned how to break into Hampstead Heath ponds at night during lockdown.
Oh my goodness.
And unfortunately...
This is like, you need to get your fix of cold water therapy once you start. And that's what people describe it as. They describe it as this euphoric feeling. And I guess when you exercise a lot, you sort of start to get that.
Yes.
And when you eat better, you're like, okay, I'm starting to feel that. And so this feels like a much more concentrated and quick way to experience that euphoria and get that everyday high, if you like.
Yeah. Totally.
Wow, so you were breaking into places to just be able to submerge.
Exactly.
Wow.
But the thing I learned the hard way, unfortunately, was that the ponds weren't closed because of COVID, it's because the water was contaminated.
Right.
So then I got sick for a few weeks.
Health issues, guys, don't do this.
Yeah, would not recommend. So, I was just going to these lengths to try and get my fix. And I remember I found this private Facebook group at the time. I think there were 6,000 people in it. Now there's like 15, 20,000. And it was dedicated to people learning how to transform, the really big chest freezers.
Yes, which is what I've seen, by the way, all over YouTube.
Yeah.
So everyone is doing this.
Yeah.
Everyone's doing the chest freezers that they've bought off Gumtree or their
found
neighbour.
On the side of the road.
Literally found on the side of the road. And dedicating a lot of time to sealing them.
Yeah.
To getting all the ice, to plugging them in and optimising the temperature levels so that they are at that sort of like 3 degrees or whatever they want.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of work.
It is so much work. And I went down that rabbit hole myself trying to think like, okay, we need certain pond sealants and then, water leaks through and it gets rusty and that's really bad for your health. And it just ended up being this really complex thing. And I just thought if there's that many people, like myself included, willing to electrocute ourselves, surely there's something bigger here. Yes. And that's then kind of what led me to founding Monk.
Wow. And it makes complete sense because after my research, which we're just talking off camera about how much I now know about the subject, the sheer amount of work is what makes me feel like, how would we even experience this? And obviously we want people to listen to this and go, okay, I'm willing to give that a go. And so we'll get into how they can do that and take the baby steps. Let's actually just talk about when the best time to do, because a lot of people say it's after a workout. Mm-hmm. Other people just do it straight away first thing in the morning. Mm-hmm. Like when did you do it when did you fit it into your routine and what is the most optimal time, I guess?
It depends. The optimal time depends on why you're using it. So if it is just to feel amazing, to really start your day off. Like I personally love doing it in the morning. At the moment, there's a group of us. We go down to the Serpentine and we all do a group plunge, which is it's so much fun. And you also have that accountability. Everyone's like, right, we're meeting at 7:30 a.m. So that's fantastic. I love using it in the morning for that. But around, there's so much research, particularly around how to use it in like an athletic kind of setting. Yeah. So if you were, for example, an endurance athlete, you can use it as pre-cooling. So you'd actually use it before you work out.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
And Andrew Huberman has been talking about that quite a lot recently. I don't know if you listen to his podcast.
No, I don't. But I need to.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Wow.
So a lot of people use it for pre-cooling, and actually. I was talking to a guy the other day. He's a doctor, and he uses it for that. And he's noticed that. He can see in his stats that his resting heart rate is lower and he actually gets a lot more out of his workout from doing that.
Wow, that's so interesting. Yeah. It's fascinating because you do everything you can to put the layers on, like you're taking the layers off slowly during a workout, you're warming up. Yeah. This is again what's so fascinating about ice bath. It's the opposite of the thing that we're drawn to do. Yeah. Right? Like warm ourselves up. Actually, you're saying that potentially an ice plunge can really help, which is, wow, that's...
And there's research to back it up, and I always thought that a warm-up, you are, physically like warming up your muscles but actually it's in a completely different way.
Wow, that's...
But then equally using it for recovery is fantastic, and typically they say you should wait about an hour before you use it, because you don't want it to completely blunt the hormetic response. But, there's just so much research out there on, various types of sports and actually how it can, quickly... like shorten your recovery time, so actually you can get out there and you can train again, which is why it's so popular with athletes from pretty much every discipline and sports teams, and they use it particularly during like training season. Yeah,
and that's I guess again where it's becoming mainstream, because when I was talking to my husband about this, he's talking about athletes that are doing it and now putting it onto their Instagrams, and people are, and obviously everybody is very inspired to live like an athlete. Many of us are not, but we want to get as close to that as possible in whatever capacity with our busy lives, and so. In that sense, this is an accessible thing to do, even though it's hard to figure out the logistics of it, because it doesn't take a lot of time and it can be something. It's not like you're, you're doing a 60-minute workout, 30-minute meditation, a 20-minute, could be a 5-minute plunge, right?
Yeah,
so
totally.
In that sense, it's very interesting. Let's go through, because I really want to like mentally prepare people for what the experience is. So let's go through, I mean, so we've just talked about before, they could potentially be doing this before a workout, they could just wake up and just do this. What happens physically to our bodies when we go from room temperature into a very cold pool of water?
So the most, I guess, the initial thing that people will experience is the fight or flight. Like as soon as you get into that body of water, every cell and every inch of your body wants you to get out and run. And you've got to really like consciously control. It's almost like a top-down like control of your brain, where you have to make yourself stay in, and you have that power, and you're just taking conscious control of yourself and your body. And I think that's what really creates that really profound experience where people realize they are in control, and that then like kind of it bleeds out into every area of your life.
And I feel like physically the first things that might go that are the most important is your breathing, similar to exercise.
Yeah.
Because again, when I was researching this, I was like, there's so many parallels here to exercise, where you start to lose control of the breathing and it becomes harder. But once you control your breath, the whole thing starts to flow. So what are your tips for somebody that does this for the first time, maybe after listening to this, and is probably cursing us, but you know, how do they control that fight or flight response?
Like you say, the breath is the most important thing. Okay. And what I find, so firstly, I actually find ice baths so much easier than cold showers. Because when you turn on a shower, you know, you're kind of like dodging everything. It's almost like something from the Matrix.
There's too much movement involved. Yeah. Like it's too easy to jump out.
Yeah. Whereas when you get into a bath, like you are kind of hit in the face with it. Like you're there fully immersed in that experience. But I find if you exhale as you get in, it makes it so much easier. And especially for the first 30 seconds to a minute are definitely the toughest. And you'll feel, you know, your heart rate rising. You want to kind of hyperventilate. But if you learn to breathe through that, you then feel after that, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, everything kind of just calms down. And you get to that point where you have that, almost like that stillness. Yeah. And it's amazing. So we did user testing in our prototype last year. And the amount of people that would use the word zen or calm, it was just crazy. So you do get to that point of just like clarity. But getting there through your breath is really key. Even yesterday, when we went into the Serpentine, I was really struggling, and I had to just think like, okay, just take 10 deep, slow breaths, and that really helps guide you through that experience.
It's amazing. Everything comes back to breathwork, meditation, cold water therapy,
it does,
exercise. Yeah, like, and it's actually just fascinating that if we can control our breathing, anxiety, our stress, everything comes back to just controlling breathing.
Yeah.
Okay, and then mentally, what is going on? So we've talked about that sense of zen and calm. So how many minutes typically are you in the water for? How long should you practice for before that starts to become the overwhelming feeling rather than the other feelings of fight or flight? Or actually, is there always going to be a mix of both?
I think there's always a mix of both. People say like, it just doesn't get easier.
Okay.
And it's so true, it doesn't. Like yesterday, I was really struggling. And, you know, there's so many other factors. Like if you haven't slept particularly well, or, you know, just like
you're stressed, or you're thinking about something else. Yeah.
Completely. Just like how it's exactly the same with the workout. Like sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not so great. And particularly for females, it depends where you are in your cycle. Yeah. Like I actually wouldn't exercise. I would never do HIIT or anything like during my period.
Yes, we're massive on this, by the way.
Oh, nice.
So this is what we coach our clients on, is exactly is listening to menstrual cycles.
Yeah.
Listening to just hormone changes in your body if you're going through pre or postnatal, and leaning into that rather than trying to fight against it.
Yeah.
Like I feel rubbish, but I'm still going to do my HIIT workout. I'm still going to be a superhero. Like you're not. And if you do, you're going to not feel great. You're not going to feel the benefits that you should be feeling after a workout. So actually that's a really amazing point to touch on. That actually I didn't find much about online. When, like, if you are in a menstrual cycle, should you do something like this?
I personally wouldn't. Okay. I don't. And it's the same if I'm sick, because the cold, although it's natural, it's so powerful, and it is a hormetic stressor, just like exercise is, right?
Yeah.
So if you were to look at, you know, someone's muscle fibers after a workout, you know, under a microscope, you'd be like, oh, they're torn, this is awful, they're like inflamed, never exercise again. Whereas we know, actually, you grow back stronger.
Part of the process,
yeah. And that's exactly the same with any kind of hormetic stressor. But if you're already under a lot of stress, whether that is because you haven't slept, because you're on your period, because you've done X, Y, Z, I would still be careful as to how I would use it during that phase of your life. And that's
that
actually
makes,
one
that
of
makes
the things.
perfect sense.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, it really does. And actually, I think the problem that we have at the moment is I'm guilty of this. Go, got to push myself, got to hit the next thing, got to do those things. And actually, sometimes you have to do the complete opposite. It's rest and recovery, and doing nothing is actually okay.
Yeah.
And so that makes complete sense. I want to get into the benefits, because I feel like now people have maybe heard us rambling on, going, okay, still don't understand why I would want to do this. And we touched on bits, but for me, it was when the list of benefits came up that I was like, and especially after having kids, anything I can do to sleep better, to reduce my stress levels, to be calmer around them, to manage my work and my career whilst being at home with them. I'm like, yes, sign me up, because you need all those tools in your toolbox. So let's talk about the benefits. Let's separate fact from fiction, because there's also a lot of benefits that I'm not 100% buying. It'd be good to hear that from you.
Yeah, so they are vast, and it's just this ever-growing body of research. I mean, typically when people talk about ice baths, they always think about athletes in terms of physical recovery and performance as well, but there's so much research out there in terms of immunity. Mental health is a huge one. I mean, especially, given what's happened in the last 3 years, I think that's also why we've had this huge explosion of cold water therapy. There's so many studies that relate it to improving anxiety, depression, and we know that depression is now the most prevalent mental health disorder in the world, which is just insane. And it's actually to do with how cold water therapy impacts inflammation and things like that, when inflammation is so tightly linked to anxiety and depression, even PTSD. And some of the research that's really exciting me at the moment is showing that it's neuroprotective. So it's actually protective against neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, like Parkinson's. And to me, it's just mind-blowing. By using the cold, you can help prevent and reverse some of these diseases. Yeah. And actually even, was it earlier this month or last month, the first brain scans came out. So they actually used MRIs to prove the effects of cold water therapy on the brain. Wow. Which is, and it's that's going to be
groundbreaking, for sure. And I feel like the research has just started. Yeah. Because as more and more people start to do it, and there's a bigger case study to do, that's going to really, and not just athletes, I'm talking general population. I'm talking your average normal people who are just doing their day-to-day, that might be suffering depression and things like that. It's going to be absolutely fascinated. And in that sense, I feel like if you're going through something like that, doing something like, I've touched on this before, a big arduous task every day is hard, but doing a 3-minute plunge again is accessible. Yeah. It's a tiny bit of your day. Okay, so weight loss, the weight loss link. I've seen this touted more so in with cryotherapy, I have to say, than cold water plunges. But is there a link? Is there a proven link? Is there scientific backing to this link? Because I can't tie up the two. I can see how it might help with your metabolism and work its magic there, but I don't know if we can go as far to say, okay, this is going to actually help you lose a stone if you do this every day.
I completely agree with you. That's why I don't tout it as one of the benefits. A lot of people do, including cryotherapy, but they're talking about the same research that has been done on cold water immersion. Right. So there absolutely is a link there, and like you say, it's very much related to metabolism. But with weight loss, there's never one size fits all. It's not like, oh, just exercise like this and you're going to lose weight, or just use cold water therapy.
We can't even just say for exercise as well. We never just say you are going to lose a stone. Yeah. We say you could potentially lose weight if you also look at your diet whilst you're exercising and sleep a little bit better, so you're not, running on nothing all day and you're fueling yourself properly and not reaching for the junk. There's so many things that go into that, and obviously the main two pillars are always going to be exercise and nutrition. Yeah. Muscle tone, I saw that as a potential benefit.
Muscle tone specifically, I'm not sure about that.
Interesting. Yeah. I feel like the list of benefits was just growing and growing the more I researched, and I feel like there is a solid list of benefits, and then there's lots of other things that come into play alongside.
Yeah, which sure maybe it helps that indirectly. And like weight loss, for example, it's a really powerful tool to have in your toolbox, but you've got to have that wider toolbox.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And now I really want to leave people with a sense of, okay, I'm feeling motivated. This actually sounds like something I could do. Mm-hmm. I'm sure some people are very, skiers, snowboarders, might actually be very attracted to the idea of a cold water therapy and actually might not daunt them at all. How do we get started? Without having access to one of your incredible ice baths, maybe that's the pinnacle that we're leading up to, but what are the very small baby steps that someone, and without breaking in illegally anywhere to anything that is intoxicating.
Do not do that.
Do not do that. But how can we actually get started? Because it's,
it could be so simple as just turning your shower cold for the last 30 seconds. Like that can be a really, really great, and I say easy way, you still have to physically turn that to cold, and that can be quite challenging, especially the first few times you do it. But it's amazing how quickly people will like state the benefits that they're feeling from that. So that's a really, really great way to get into it, which you can just do at home.
Yeah.
One of the best ways I find is if you have friends and you can go to the coast. There's so many groups now forming of people who go and dip, which is amazing. And it's so motivating when you're doing things like this with friends.
Yeah.
So that would definitely be another way. And even if that was at a Lido or somewhere, if you're like, say for example, even in London, you think, well, that's not accessible. You can go to the Serpentine, you can go to the Hampstead Heath Ponds, you can go to Lidos.
And you're just allowed to go there and just turn up and just...
So I think the Serpentine, you do have to be a member. I have friends that come all the time and they're not. There are wardens there. So, I'm not saying...
I love this. You're such a rule breaker, Laura. I thought you were so follow the rules, but I'm seeing a whole different side to Laura today, which I'm absolutely loving. Okay, I love that. And I think for London especially, even having a bath is a luxury if you live in central London. So it's just giving people those tools to say, actually, you can take the baby steps to get there.
One thing actually that we've just launched something called Thursday Plunge Club, which is like our global initiative just to get more people plunging wherever they are in the world and whatever vessel of cold water they have, whether that is the sea or their cold shower. So at 7:30 a.m. every Thursday, we're live streaming some breath work and a guided plunge as well. So people can just tune in wherever or watch it later. But we just want to get more people to doing it.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I feel like now's the time I go, I'm going to join you there, Laura, I'm coming.
Okay, next Thursday.
Okay, right, yes. We're going to talk about that later. No, that is exactly what people need. And I feel like the sense of community, it's the same, again, I keep going back to exercise, but actually doing a group workout when you're starting off can sometimes just break down a little bit of the anxiety you're feeling around it, and then actually build that confidence for yourself to do it by yourself.
Yes, community and accountability, those two together are just so powerful.
So powerful, I completely agree. Thank you. This has been such a good talk. I feel like this has been the sort of beginner's guide to cold water therapy and how to do it. Guys, you can actually follow the whole journey for Monk. It's honestly really fascinating. I think these guys are going to be doing some really exciting stuff over the next few years. At Discover Monk on Instagram, and Laura is on @Laura Fullerton if you have anything more specific that you want to quiz her on. And yes, I am going to be doing an ice plunge. I'm committing myself to that because honestly, anything to get through, running a business and having kids and all that sort of stuff, I like to sign me up for. So thank you so much.
Thank you.